Well, it's day 2 of the polytunnel clear and replant. I've just put mushroom compost down on here. I'm just levelling it off now, and then I'll tamp it down with a rake just to make it nice and firm as a planting medium. And I don't do that if I'm doing it in summer, because I like it nice and fluffy in summer, but in winter, I'm not using it as a water retentive mulch. I'm using it as a feed, and it's better tamped down for that. People are always asking me, what are these little paving slabs for? They're for that. Just makes it really easy for me to get in. I don't need to weed at this time of year, but I do need to harvest, and so it makes it easy to get to the whole of the bed. And it's nice and neat. So now I've fitted my Envirotect, and all I just use fence pins at the back there, hammer them in, and then clip some of these coated canes, I guess, onto the back there, and clip it at the back so that it stays in place. I put it in at this time of year just because it's easier now than when it gets really cold. Previous years I've always used fleece, and I've decided this year I'm not going to use fleece. I'm going to use Envirotect. Envirotect doesn't provide as much protection as fleece does, but it's much more breathable. It lets loads of light through, and basically you can leave it in place. So the problem with the fleece is, when it was a really cold night, like -6 or something like that, I'd put the fleece down, but then in the day I'd have to come and take it off again so to keep the airflow moving. Whereas with the Envirotect, as I say, I don't need to do that. I can just put it on, leave it in place. If I left it for a week, it would be fine, and so much nicer. The nice thing, apart from all those benefits, as I say, Envirotect doesn't provide quite as much protection. A thick fleece like the one I was using probably would protect things down to sort of -6 or something like that. This will probably only protect them down to say -3 or 4. So if there's a -6 in here, it will still freeze like to -2 or something like that. But honestly, lettuces don't care about -2 at all. They were quite happy with that. In fact, to a large extent, they're happy at -6 as well. But I do find it just provides that little bit of extra protection, and it's just so easy to do. I just pop it down like this. It takes me literally seconds to do, and it's just really great. So I can just clip it here if I wanted to, and I'm done. So I mentioned the mushroom compost that I'm using. It's so lovely. It's my favourite compost really for mulching. It's so crumbly and loose. It's just really nice. I mean, it's quite coarse. It's a perfect mulch. You wouldn't want to grow seeds in it or anything, but it's really nice. This year I'm giving them a bit more space than I have in the past. I found that when they get a bit too close, you get a lot of leaf dieback because of the low light levels in winter. If they're sort of too cramped together, so the lower leaves just aren't getting any light at all. So anyway, I thought I'd just give them a bit more space. I'm putting more lettuces in than I've ever done before in here, so I can afford to be slightly generous. So that didn't take very long. I really enjoy dibbing the holes, especially when the bed's nice and moist and the holes don't collapse on you. And only a few over there collapse, so they'll need a little bit of extra water, but the rest of it seems to be pretty good. I've dibbed the holes quite deep. I quite like doing that. I quite like pushing the plants sort of 1 inch below the soil level, and that just provides a little depression into which I can water the root zone of the plants. And the first ones I'm going to do, I've actually got a lot of plants to go in. They're all salad ingredients. I haven't quite got all of them here, but the first tray I'm going to do are these Grenobyl Red, also sometimes thought of as red Grenoble. I prefer to call them Grenobyl Red. They've got this beautiful bronzy tinge on the leaves. They do tend to suffer in the middle of winter in my ground from a little bit of tip burn, and so that can be an issue, and I'm never quite sure what to do about it. I've tried lots of different things. It's down to calcium uptake in the tips of the leaves. They're not getting enough calcium out of the ground. It's not that there isn't any calcium in the ground. There is quite a lot of calcium in the ground, especially when you've mulched with mushroom compost, which includes lime. It's to do with the fact that the plants aren't growing fast enough to pull the calcium out of the ground and all the way up to the tips, and partly that's due to airflow. So that's one of my ideas about using this Envirotect, is that I can get a little bit more airflow in here when it's really cold, while still protecting the plants a little bit. And I think airflow helps because it causes evaporation on the tips of the leaves, and that evaporation results in, I assume, a pressure what's an inverse pressure called? Like a vacuum, that sort of sucks the moisture up into the leaf tips. I don't know whether that's going to work or not, but we'll give it a go. So these have got a nice root system on them. Pretty pleased with that. So I can afford to be a little bit choosy with the plants because I've got just a few spare. Well, I'm hoping I have. And when I'm putting a lot of plants in, I tend to just drop the plants into the planting stations holes and come back to them and settle them in. And the reason I like to do that is just so I can concentrate on doing each job well. You know, right now my concentration is on picking the healthiest looking seedlings, and then later it's going to be settling them in. I don't really know whether it makes any difference, but it makes me feel better. If I'm just doing a few plants, I don't really bother. But it also means that if I do find that I've got some spares, I can kind of go back and look over them and see if any of the spares look better than the weaker ones that haven't yet sort of settled into their holes. So it has those a few advantages. But these are looking great, even though they had a really bad start. They're all looking really nice at the moment. So next up are the Roxy. Unlike Grenobyl Red, which I grow in winter, well, autumn, winter and spring. I don't generally do very many of them in summer. Roxy I only really grow for winter and early spring. It's not a great lettuce for the other seasons, but at this time of year it is absolutely such a star. I have the best success rate with it of all the lettuces that I grow. You know, very few of them end up dying off due to stem rot. Doesn't suffer from tip burn. You can't see it so much now, but certainly in the early spring it bronzes up beautifully, and yeah, it's a really lovely lettuce. You do have to keep on top of harvesting it. The big leaves can be a little bit lackluster, but the newer, smaller leaves are excellent. This year I'm not doing as many experiments. I'm kind of settled on most of the lettuces that I grow, and in the middle of winter it's really better, I think, just to grow what works rather than experiment too much, because so few lettuces do really well over winter. But there's a few, which I'll talk about in a minute, which are worth growing just because they're so lovely, even though they're not fantastic. And for those, it's better to sort of plan on replacing them in January with something better for spring, rather than hanging on to them. Because I like planting so much, I generally plan on replacing everything eventually in here with my favourite spring varieties. I just find they're just healthier and stronger plants than overwintered ones. Right, I'll get all these settled in, and as I say, I'm just pushing them so that they're about 1 to 2 centimetres down below the compost level. And the compost's pretty moist, and in most places, and the lettuces are well watered, so I'm not going to water them in at all, and I will come back and give them a bit of water in maybe a week's time, something like that. But right now I want them to enjoy this sunny weather and focus on seeking out water, putting good roots down. I've left a row here. I'm just going to put some salad onions in there, because it's really nice to have a few salad onions in here just for when it's really horrible outside and we don't want to harvest anywhere else. And we've got lots of stuff coming in here in addition to these lettuces, but they're going to be in various different containers in the middle here. And then finally, I've just got a few of these flashy lightning butter oaks. I love these lettuces, they're one of my absolute favourites. And although they don't overwinter particularly well, they're worth it just because they're so nice. Worth taking the risk on. But I just pop them at this end here, because I will be replacing them, as I say, in January. Probably, almost certainly. Maybe just with flashy lightning butter oaks. But yeah, these are the only lettuce really this year that I'm kind of experimenting with. I mean, I grew them last year, but I suppose it's only my second year growing them. And as I say, they did well up until December, middle of December. They kind of stalled then. So all the lettuces have gone in so far are loose leaf lettuces to be harvested one leaf at a time. These going in now are Brighton, and these are just perfect for harvesting a reasonable sized head in the middle of winter. There's not many lettuces really that will do that. I mean, there's a few that will grow ahead, often they rot. The key thing is to keep the leaves dry, to keep the heart dry, so only watering the root zone, stopping watering, like all these lettuces, I'll stop watering at the beginning of December, and yeah, so Brighton is the favourite. I have got a few Valdor that I'll just try. Not very many of them, because they haven't grown as well as the Brighton, but I want to give them, I always want to do not many experiments now in winter because I don't have enough space really to be experimenting, but I'll do one row of Valdor. We can compare and contrast. So that's all the lettuces in. So all down here, lettuces to be harvested, as I say, in December and January. All down here, lettuces to continue to be harvested all through late autumn, winter and early spring. Right at the end there, a few that will be harvested in December, maybe early January, replanted. And I probably will then start replanting in here in February gradually as the lettuce volume picks up here. I'll need less and less of these lettuces, and so I'll start clearing and replanting. All down here will be Calabrese, and I've just got 2 spots at the end there underneath the trestle tables, and I have the perfect salad ingredient to go in there, which is Claytonia or miner's lettuce. I start those on the 7th, I think, of September. All these other lettuces were started on the 12th, and today, 12th of September, and today is the 7th of October. So Claytonia is the most wonderful lettuce. I mean, well, it's not strictly speaking a lettuce perhaps, but the most wonderful salad ingredient. Everybody absolutely loves it. It's super healthy, and the unique thing about it is it just keeps on growing, you know, all through the middle of winter, and it tends to go to seed sometime in early March. So it will self-seed in this bed as well, and so we'll get some volunteers, but the trouble is with the volunteers, they don't tend to come up early enough for me. So that one broke up a little bit, unfortunately, but I think it'll be all right. And this whole bed will be absolutely full of Claytonia once it gets going, and you can just keep on picking it. So we just snip it off, and it just regrows. It's fantastic. And that's it. I'm all done. I've moved my parsley in. I've got some lovely baby beet leaves that I'm going to bring in here as well, and I'll have lettuces and you know, spinach and Asian greens and things like that in containers, and all sorts of other stuff coming in, as well as all of my overwintered brassicas, which are going to go on that shelf there. So yeah, loads of stuff, and obviously this is nicely complemented by the greenhouse, which is now completely taken over from the polytunnel for all the summer fruits. So that's where the cucumbers and the tomatoes and the peppers and all that sort of thing are, although I have got one bed of peppers still to harvest on the allotment. And of course I'm not going to eat these lettuces for a while, so I've got to survive with salads, and so I've got a few beds outside. One's just coming to an end, one's just about to take over, and they'll feed us all the way through October, and then they should be ready in early November. And I'll have a few more beds outside with things like Brighton and Roxy, also just to help us get through that depths of winter period when not very much is growing. So if you're interested in polytunnel growing or greenhouse growing or growing under cover in general or just gardening, then I've got a free ebook. You can find a link to that in the description down below. And I've also got a weekly newsletter which goes through step by step everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm sowing, everything I'm pricking out, potting on, planting and harvesting, and more importantly why I'm doing all those things, and links to all of my other resources that tell you how to do it as well. It's all for free. My name's Steve, this is the Outgrow channel, and I'll see you soon.